Friday. So you know what that means. Financial Friday. It's me and my boys rocking. We're waiting on G to get on. He'll be here. If he's not, it's okay. We're going to hold it down. You will be missed, my man. So me and Jeremiah, what's up, bro? How was your week?
The week is phenomenal, man. I always look forward to us coming here, being able to drop a couple gems. You know how Salt Bay does it with the,
Oh,
with the,
yeah.
that's how I feel. We just add a little flavor to everybody's sauce for the week, man. So I'm excited.
A little razzle dazzle.
A little rap dazzle, man.
So as I pull the article, so this week, for those of you that don't know, so we got a couple of normal statements for you. First of all, these are our opinions. Okay, please do your own due diligence. This is how we feel about what's going on in the market, the articles we speak about. This is not us giving you advice, so please speak to a professional. There's our guy. Uh, please speak to a professional. And yes, second thing, for those of you who are new to our show, the way that it works is every week, myself, Jeremiah, or Glenn will pick the articles of the week. So there'll be 3 articles. And what we will do is we will talk about each article, how we feel about it, what we think it, why it should matter to you. Um, we very highly encourage you all, if you're in the comments, if you're watching and all that, drop a comment. We can see it. And we would love to hear your questions because at the end of the day, we do this all for you. So with that being said, this week was Jeremiah's turn for the articles. As I pull the articles up, Jeremiah, tell us where your head was at as you chose these.
You guys know, obviously, we've been discussing a lot about SVB. That's been all the talk when it comes to anybody that's inside of finances. For myself, though, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper, looking at some of the causes of why the economy is where it is, and seeing basically in these how is SVB affecting our overall holistic view of the economy. That's something that I want to look at, right? How it ties into other things. So that was kind of the focus on these articles.
Okay. So we'll pull up which article do you want to pull up first?
Let's do the what is it? The consumer index one. The sentiment over the consumer index.
Okay.
Consumer sentiments drop. I like that one.
Okay. What's up, G?
What's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Good, man.
I'm ripping and running around Palo Alto in San Francisco. You can't find parking anywhere around here.
Oh yeah. I was just me and Ned were just out up at Martinez.
Good stuff. Cool.
How did Amari do?
He did well. We're waiting for the final results. There's still the other professionals are now jumping. So
bet.
I'll keep you guys updated.
Glenn is super dad, literally. And I'm not saying that cornerly. I'm being honest about that. He is super dad. It's goals.
Facts. Okay, so here you go, Jeremiah. So U.S. consumer mood darkens, but banking turmoil impacts limited so far. Umish says so. So why did you pick this article, Jeremiah, and what do you got?
So the sentiment index slid. They said, to 62% from 67. What this means is consumer index. How comfortable do I feel spending my money, right? And so when we took a poll in January it was 67%. Why? Because the market was rising up, right? You saw people that were like, okay, maybe it's not going to be such a bad recession. So you saw the sentiment kind of erasing. February comes around, and then people are like, okay, yeah, maybe we are going to have a recession. We're not going to be getting away with it. Fed keeps doing what it's doing. Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm seeing that recession coming around. And what's funny is the banking issues, even though the month started off the way that it did, the actual banking issues, it had limited impact. People were just already in a downward trend. In the article, it states, and it says, you would have thought that the banking from SVB and all this stuff would have caused a lot of it. But actually, if you look, the trend was already headed downwards, right? Because people were already used to what was going on. They saw the economy moving through. And although, here's what's funny, thanks to the Fed and thanks to the other larger brothers in the banking sector, that they stabilized deposits, right? They cut the run on deposits down. People are starting to feel more safe with the banks again, right? So deposit numbers are stabilizing.
Yeah.
What's funny is that it's had little effect on the household consumption. right? It's not stimulating people to go out and spend more money. What it says is that our sentiment is the way that it is. This didn't overly make us feel worse, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's not making me want to, even though you've stabilized it now and everything's good, you haven't made me want to go back out there and spend money.
Yeah.
The expectations, the overall in a year, people, their thoughts, or the number of people that thought it was going to be in basically a recession for this year,
Yeah.
those numbers spiked a little bit. The people that said, hey, inflation is going to last longer, it's probably going to last more like a 5-year period, right? Because the Fed's been trying to back everything off. And so that actually stayed about the same, 2.9%, almost 3%. Overall, summary of this is just letting you know that what are we doing as consumers, right? It's very important that we consume and that we buy stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is the way money moves around the United States right now. What is the sentiment? The sentiment is to get my money. I don't want to spend anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to spend it because there could be something that's coming on the way. So I wasn't ready in 2020. I'm going to be ready this time. So I'm probably not going to spend all that money. And so what ends up happening is the byproduct of that is all of these companies and different services and stuff suffer.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that one.
No, I mean, and that's kind of where we're at, right? Like the SVP situation was definitely put out there, and people heard about it, but no one really knew like how it affected them. Like I talked to people, I'm like, hey, did you hear about SVP? They're like, oh yeah, I heard like a bank failed, and I'm just like, oh, you don't like, and so I'm not honestly not that surprised that
Do you know what that is though? That is lack of awareness. So us as a nation, we have a very low level of awareness when it comes to financial, and that's why it's so important what we're doing, the financial literacy, giving that education, because people have a very low financial awareness. Are you telling me that a bank that had, got warnings back in 2021 to stop what they were doing, you're telling me now in 2023 it fails because it kept doing practices that they warned them were not the best way to run their bank?
Yep.
And it's a huge bank. Silicon Valley is, it's a huge amount of money, huge influx of deposits that go through this bank. It's the second largest bank failure in U.S. history.
Yep.
That doesn't spark your interest. I don't know. And that just shows lack of awareness.
Yeah, you speak on the lack of awareness. We were out in Palo Alto again 2 weeks prior to today, and we were out at lunch, and I was talking to Omari, our oldest, and I was talking to Tegan as well. But the conversations that were being had in just a little cafe versus just other cities, other places.
Yeah.
And they were talking about SVP. They were talking about, the bankings, about indexes, crypto stocks. Like these are people that were just kind of around in the area.
Yeah.
And, Cam, like you were mentioning, like, you have so many people, or you're talking to so many people, and so many people are not aware of what's going on and how it's affecting them.
Yeah.
And so as I was kind of reading this, that kind of stood out to me, because I was like, I think last week I was talking, I had spoke to a handful of people about SVP, just kind of asking them about it. And then they were just like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and so with this particular article, while the bank collapse has affected a lot, one thing that we can't do is blame the SVP for a lot, for everything, right? So just like Jeremiah was saying, in this particular article was talking about the consumer, they were already on a downward spiral. Right. And so for those that are not aware of what the consumer sentiment is, and Jeremiah kind of alluded to it, is essentially a metric that businesses use to measure how their customers think and feel about their brand. And so I just wanted to kind of chime in real quick on that, man. It took me back to that place when I was in Palo Alto 2 weeks ago.
Glenn's gonna leave me now. He's like, I like the conversations they're having here in these cafes. I like Vacaville cafe conversation.
Expansion.
So the next article I have pulled up, Jeremiah, is the key inflation gauge. Is that the one you want, or do you want your man?
Let's do that one last. That was going to take a lot of time. I got a lot to digest out of that one. That was going to take time. So yeah, let's do Tesla, because we'll knock that one out quicker. We need more time for the inflation gauge.
Bet. Boom.
There we go. Now you guys all know You all know I love Elon, right? It's a love-hate relationship. Elon has made me tons of money. All right. I sympathize. I used to say Elon was my spirit animal, man, because he just says things that I want to say. He just doesn't care.
He
That's how I
really,
am as a person as well. I've been working on it. Glenn has been really working on me. He's been, hey, behind the scenes, I'm working. I'm a work in progress.
he's been
But I
more.
love Elon, man. And Cam is the so when you have and you're sitting, everyone knows this, maybe you don't, I'm showing my age, in the cartoons when you have the devil and the angel on the shoulder. So Cam is the devil, and then Glenn is the angel that tells me, don't say that, don't please, no, don't say that, don't do that. And Cam's like, yes, go harder, do it again, do more. Yeah. Anyway,
The
I
best of both
had
worlds.
to give that bit the best of both worlds, man. That's why you need people. But in this article, what you're seeing is something that's very interesting. Now we've heard about the NBA, we've heard about Nike, right? LeBron has gotten some flack about it, but people standing up for China, and it's more the economic cycle and the economic system than it is the actual oppression or the governmental side of things. Now, what do you mean by that? Well, guys, if you didn't know, when it comes to China, they're a hybrid. Very strange, but it's worked for them. What do you mean? What I mean is the state controls everything. It's communism, but the economy is like this weird capitalistic type thing, right? It's strange. Never been seen, never been seen before, right? Never seen before, but it's a hybrid. And so what ends up happening is China was in lockdown, COVID lockdown for 3 years. They're just now coming out of it. Now, them coming out of it, it spurs economies, right? Because China is one of the largest producers and consumers of goods. And so what ends up happening is the trends and things that you were accustomed to that you saw post COVID, right? They've been shaken up now because China's coming out of that recession with over 1 billion people that's in their population. So the economy is sprouting. This is what helps to create, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, stagflation. All this leads to Elon Musk having a conversation because why? He wants to ramp up the Tesla production. He wants to double it,
Mhm.
right? How do I do that? Well, the largest consumer of Teslas outside of the US is in China. Also, he has factories over there, right?
Yep.
And a lot of the sourcing of raw material goods and commodities come from China. So it's cheaper, it's better and easier for him to build the actual vehicles there. Now, with all that being said, he wants to meet with the premier, have a conversation about the overall thought process or the actual direction of getting more money or investors, right, from the Western world, right, which is the US and China, the EU. I mean, excuse me, Europe and the EU. So what they're talking about is Tesla wants to invest more money into China. Now, this comes at a kind of like a juxtapose, right? Because like I said earlier, we know that if you put more money into China, people are going to talk about you. There's optics, right? And
Yeah.
what's ended up happening is Twitter, which we know that Elon Musk owns. Unfortunately, I hate I hate that. But anyway, Twitter's kind of split down the middle. There's people that are very, very cognizant of what China does, right? The actual human side of it, right? Because we know that when it comes to China doesn't have the best record of treating people well, right? They do some strange things and horrible things. And so there's that side of it. But then there's also the people that know that on the other side, China's a huge consumer. And so the business side says it's going to make money. And so what you've seen is Elon Musk, he didn't say what he's going to talk about, but I'm almost 100% sure that's what he's going to talk about. You see that. And then you also see, you know, Apple just met there, right? You see Apple, Disney, all these major companies are going over there and having conversations. And so what ends up happening and really a major question that comes with this is, you know, will this growth, possible growth over in China, right? Will that help to destabilize some of the U.S. companies, right? And will this help to continue stagflation? Because what ends up happening as China begins to grow, right, and they're continuing to see their economy grow, then that actually tips the balance, right? Tips the scales against us in the U.S. And so that's what I got from this. It's actually a great article because it gives you something to think about, right? Like, what would you do if you were Elon Musk, right? If you were, Apple, if you were all of these major companies, and it's a huge market there, but then you know the way the human rights portion goes. So there we go.
I think one of the things I always find interesting is that human rights piece, because as Americans, we love to judge everybody else, but we don't like to look internally.
I was trying to stay away from that, right? I was trying to stay away.
That's why I'm the devil, baby. I'm
We
just
we can't throw pebbles.
saying.
We can't throw pebbles in a glass house.
So yeah, and I always think that's funny. It's like, it was unpolitically, it's the same thing when it comes to like elections, right? Like I know, when Trump and other people were there, like, oh, what's this businessman doing this and what's this doing that and all those other things. And it's like, at the end of the day, we all have our opinions, but if we were to take the veil off, a lot of the same things that are happening other places, they may not be as put out there or to the extreme, and so there's a reason that these companies, they recognize the opportunity that's there, and ultimately they're be like, I mean, America's not going to make us go down, so we're going to take the opportunity. We might lose a little bit of we might lose a little bit of business, but at the end of the day, business will soar no matter what. It's the few for the many.
I agree.
Yeah, as I read this article, it was more from a leadership lens, and so from a leadership and business lens. And while as I started diving more into it, like you were saying, Jeremiah, like it didn't really talk about what Elon's going to talk about in China. And so as I kept reading more and more of it, I thought about like Elon is a very global impact thinker, right? And so part of obviously this is strategic, I'm sure. China being the second outside the U.S. being the largest, location when it comes to Tesla, and so as a CEO and as a leader of my agent or of my company, I need to go and make sure that I'm having FaceTime with those partners, right? And so again, like it mentioned in the article, we don't know exactly what's going to be said, but you kind of alluded to something that's probably more than likely going to be a topic being discussed, especially because he hasn't been out there since I think it's since
2020.
2020, yeah. And so yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm sure there's going to be some more pieces in the news with Elon Musk's name and China and the discussion that they're having out there. So I'm looking forward to reading more about that.
It's going to be collusion, accusations against Elon, because we just saw Russia over there having a conversation with Ming, and Russia had the conversation, said we're going to be doing things, we're changing up, the last 100 years, and you know what that means. That means we're tired of the U.S. running everything, right? And empires are made to be broken. I'm an American, I live here, but empires are made to be broken. This is how the world works. No one stays on top forever. Roman Empire was the longest lasting empire, and they begin to erode internally, right? And that's the way things happen. So we've had those seedlings for the longest time, and we're not even half as long. I think Roman Empire lasted over 1,000 years, like 1,300 years or something like that, something crazy.
We're like
right? So like we're not even that old, and we already have right and left, right? We can't seem to get our right and left foot to walk in the same direction, right, as a country. So it's detrimental. But as a businessman, you have to know the bottom line is the bottom line. He owes shareholders. I'm a shareholder, major shareholder, by the way. I think Cam is a major shareholder. So I'm not upset with him about going to China. I'm not upset about that. Like I know it sounds bad, but at the end of the day, like Cam said, we're the last people to be talking about anyone with human rights. I think it's kind of funny when we persecute other people, but anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But yep.
Well, there's the big there's the big like cobalt stuff right now too, right? There's all the pictures and things like that. Yep. All right, bro.
Okay.
I digress.
Okay.
So the last article, so a key inflation gauge tracked by the Fed slowed in February. So this is the one you said that we really wanted to dissect. So brother, make it happen.
Okay. So let's talk about this. The inflation gauge that they're looking at, there's a couple of different things that as the Fed, right, or as the government that, we look at that tells us basically how the economy is doing. The consumer prices rose about 5%. It was slower than about 5.3% annually, and in January. But here's the thing: when it comes to the breakdown of this whole entire article, you got well, let's go ahead and break this down. There's a difference between core inflation, right, and then just inflation as a whole.
Mhm.
Inflation as a whole talks about it's kind of talking about the change in the price of goods, but it includes like super volatile stuff like energy and food, right? Obviously, we talked about eggs. If you were owning eggs, you were like a cartel leader, right? People were selling eggs like dope, right? And so that's those type of things. They're very volatile, so those aren't included. So the core inflation is everything else that don't doesn't include like those two sectors, right? And what we notice is that, okay, so core inflation rose 0.3%, right, from January, and it's about 4.6% higher year over year. All
Mhm.
this stuff is all breaking down. You're like, dude, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is inflation still grips the economy,
Yep.
right? Um, really, the Fed they've risen the benchmark 9 times since last March. That's a year,
Yeah.
right? That is unprecedented. Okay. So, the biggest issue that the Fed is dealing with right now is the fact that what people can still afford to spend.
Yep.
Why? Because prices are high, right? Inflation is high. So what do? You go in and you demand raises from your boss, and they have to give it to you because the cost of living is shifting higher.
Yep.
Well, I don't have to give it to you. You're right. But they'll find a company that will. So you can't retain your employees. So what do? You start giving them raises. You give them raises. What does that do overall, holistically for the economy? That keeps prices exactly where they are right now. And that's the problem. Even though prices, we kind of slow down inflation a little bit, but people are still getting higher wages,
Yeah.
right? We talked about, I think one week we talked about the actual job market,
Yeah.
where that's going. And you see all this stuff coming in, and it says the Fed's policy has been complicated by rate hikes. That what could they do? The rate hikes could further destabilize the banking system. Guys, if you haven't realized it, you don't want to deposit your money into something where there's further rate hikes and you can't borrow that money back at a understandable or agreeable rate.
Yep.
So what's that say? I don't want to put my money into the bank. So you
Yep.
know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go take my money out of the bank. So Jerome Powell, he gets up, and that is the chairman of the Fed. Okay, he gets up and he says, you know what? What I'm actually thinking of is the fact that SVB happened and all the runs on deposits upon the banks. Maybe that was the correction. So maybe we don't have to increase. Maybe we don't have to continue to do rate hikes because the actual deposit run kind of right that kind of hit the banking sector, which is what we're trying to affect the overall finance of the economy. And so he was saying maybe we can just kind of pull back from that, right? Maybe we can not do rate hikes because all of this has occurred. And maybe we can just let that be, the piece of depression or oppression of the market that we needed. And somebody was saying a little bit further down in the article, they said, hey, you know what's funny? You know, you can get a $5 meal from Wendy's or some fast food place, but it's going to be more expensive for you to make that exact same meal, right? If you went and bought the food from the grocery store, it's more expensive to buy it from the grocery store. I think that's weird, right? Um, all of this goes into what we've been seeing. Now, we said that what's funny though is in the markets, in the European markets, they hadn't seen a huge change, right? But now it's starting to affect them. And so they've been trying to get control of it. They took the leadership right, or they followed behind the Fed here, and they started hitting some rate hikes themselves. And so Europe just saw the lowest inflation rate, right? They saw the lowest inflation rate in about a year. And what they're saying is that okay, now we're going to have to readjust ourselves because of the banking stuff that's happening. We see all this stuff occurring. The Fed is saying, all right, we see Europe is changing. That's going to change the way we trade. That's going to, change the way money is moving around throughout the continents. And then they say, you know what? Right now, what we really watch is the PCE, which is the personal consumption expenditure, instead of the CPI. The CPI is what? The consumer price index, which is what people normally hear, right? If you hear there's a whole bunch of abbreviations, right, and letters. The CPI is a consumer price index. people are usually, or the Fed's usually talk about that, but they say we actually need to watch the personal consumption expenditures because why? Rent, yes, rent. People that are renting houses is weighed double, right? So it's kind of weighted twice inside of it's weighted twice in the CPI versus the PCE. So you're getting real numbers, right, in the personal consumption expenditure. Now, it also talks about that the PCE shows the way people spend when inflation jumps, like real money, right? So, for example, people that, and yourself probably, used to buy, I don't know, name brand stuff, Ragu, spaghetti sauce, right? You buy national brands. Now you're starting to switch to the store brand, Kirkland, right? Or Great Value at Walmart. So all of these things are culminating. Now, what you're like, man, you just led us down a rabbit hole. No, what I'm trying to let you know is that inflation, they're trying to get control of it, but there are so many variables. It's almost impossible. So what you have is people that thought they had an equation figured out, and then boom, let me just go ahead and drop SVB in the middle of that whole thing and totally change everything. So if you were sitting and thinking about your finances and you thought that maybe this was going to be over within a year, 9 months to a year, because that was a speculation previous, you should probably add on about 18 to 24 months to that, because that's the way the ripple effects go from this banking mishap. And that's why I find it funny, Cam, that, people have that lack of awareness, because when you ask them what's going on, all of these things tie together. Like, it's literally tying everything together. And if you don't know, the root cause and what's going on, then you're just kind of lost. Sorry for the elaborate breakdown, but that was a deep one.
Jeremiah missed us. And funny.
No, that was good. That was a great breakdown. I will say, I mean, I know we're about to wrap up. We try to be on point with our time. The one thing I'll say with kind of the last piece of what you said, like there's so many speculations as far as 9 months to 12 months we should be back to normal. I will say, if for the people that are watching or rewatching this, be very, very intentional with what you're spending your money and how you're spending your money and where you're placing your money. I wanted to just kind of leave. That's my final thought with that. But that was a great breakdown of that article and how it applies to day to day.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's like Jeremiah said, it's elaborate, and I think too many people like try and either shove it off or act like they can completely dissect it, and unfortunately, you can't. There's a lot of things that have to be considered, and at the end of the day, main points is that, like, where's your money? How are you growing your money? How are you protecting your money? And how are you paying attention to the things that affect your money?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
100%.
on that note, parting comments, Jeremiah, this was your week. What you got?
I feel like I've talked a ton. I'm just like, geez,
It's
listen,
nice. It's been nice.
this is what I want to say for everybody. Following up on what you guys have said, be very intentional where your money goes. Be very intentional with understanding and having a financial plan for you and your family. If years before in the past you were just kind of willy-nilly and you just kind of let it go, however, whatever, writing just kind of, day by day, now's not the time to do that. There's going to be times, there's going to be things that happen that you can't recover from. So what I'm telling people now is be very, just like G said, be very intentional. Be very intentional with what you do with your money. Talk with a fiduciary agent. Help people actually, they're going to help people actually get to the place to where they want to be. So what I want to tell you is speak with someone that can help you to align a plan for you and your family, and then stick to that plan, right? Implement it. That's it.
Facts. Have a plan, implement it. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Don't.
So on that note, hey, we appreciate y'all rocking with us on another Financial Friday. Every week, Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We are here for y'all, and we hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Peace.